William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
And good afternoon and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. And our guest is somebody who's been with us before. It's always fun to have her on, Lesléa Newman. Lesléa is the author of 70 books. What have you ever done, Patti?
I know. I was looking at her. I was looking at her selection on Amazon. I was like, "Holy moly!"
Yeah, she's got a lot.
She's best known for Heather Has Two Mommies, which came out in 1989. It came out. And we're going to talk a little bit about this later, but because she was the subject of a protest by one of the most hated men in Dallas. My favorite book of hers is A Fire Engine for Ruthie. She wrote The Boy Who Cried Fabulous. Her newest children's book is Sparkle Boy. We're going to talk about Hanukkah Delight and Matzo Ball Moon. And she has an upcoming book called Gittle's Journey. That doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. October Morning, a song from Matthew Shepard. Or A Song for Matthew is the subtitle of the book, I Carry My Mother. Her latest book, though, is called Lovely, which is a book for adults. It's poetry and some other writings in here. Lesléa, welcome.
Thank you for having me on the show again.
Oh, I'd love to. I was delighted when I got your book in the mail because it meant we could have you on again. But tell us a little bit about your new book, Lovely. It just came out. It was just published.
Just on January 2nd. So it's a collection of poems that I wrote since I Carry My Mother, so probably the poems from the last 3 years. And unlike I Carry My Mother and October Morning, which are really novels in verse, they have a beginning, middle, end, and a clear-through storyline. These are more eclectic poems about childhood, political poems, mother-daughter poems, and of course some fabulous love poems to celebrate my spouse and I being together for 30 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you were together when you wrote Heather?
We were together when I wrote Heather. That sounds like a poem.
Well, feel free to use it.
I might.
Tell us a little bit about some of the poems, because here's what caught my eye. One of the descriptions is that it's a poetry collection about childhood to becoming a woman of a certain age. Now, you and I are about the same certain age, so what certain age?
Well, certainly my certain age is 62, I'm not ashamed to say. And one thing that happened when I was writing these poems, I realized, I'm looking back for half a century, back towards my childhood and just seeing things in a different way. For example, some things that my mom used to say to me, like, I'm cold, go put on a sweater, which used to be very annoying. Right now it's very amusing. And so one of the poems, which is called Madel, is just a list of all these things that she used to say to me. And, hearing her voice in my head was really comforting to me because she's gone now.
Now, see, when I notice myself saying things that my father would say, I go, oh, God, I can't believe I said that or I thought that. Yep. Because it was one of those things that I always said I would never do that.
Right,
so,
well, never is a dangerous word.
I know.
Same situation right now.
Have you seen, there's a commercial one right now for some car insurance or something, where they have the support group for the people who are becoming their parents. It's really very funny.
Oh, that's funny.
He goes, why would I get a new one when this one still works?
Well, there you go. There's no such thing as an expiration date.
That's right.
Why don't you read one of your poems for us? Do you have one that picked out that you particularly like?
Well, I can read a political poem.
Sure.
I could read a love poem.
Sure.
You know what? I think I'll read a poem that's actually a love poem and a political poem.
Okay.
How about that? It's called To Have and to Hold. and it has a little epigraph which says, which your listeners probably know, on May 17th, 2004, Massachusetts became the first U.S. state to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. On May 17th, 2 by 2 side by side, surrounded by love, we were bursting with pride, eager for rights that were so long denied. On May 17th, 2 by 2 side by side, even the newscasters grew misty-eyed as each groom kissed his groom and each bride kissed her bride. On May 17th, 2 by 2 side by side, surrounded by love, we were bursting with pride.
Oh, I love that.
That's right. I do too.
I just love that, yeah.
Wow, 2004. That long ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? 14 years ago.
Wow.
You're old, Lerone.
I am.
Yeah, because you got married before that, Lerone.
No. Oh,
Yeah, you had to go up to...
No. I got married in 2000. So, Danny, I hope you're not listening.
He's so positive.
2007. I got married in 2007.
Because Lerone got knocked up, and they wanted to be married before they had the baby. So...
Well, we actually had what we called a mitzvah in 1989.
That's funny. That's funny.
That's great.
Hey, have you gotten married?
Yes, many times.
Ah, okay.
To the same person.
Yes, yeah. That I was assuming.
Yes, so we started seeing each other in 1988, and then we had our mitzvah in 1989. And then when Massachusetts was giving us marriage licenses, we got married in 2004. And then we celebrated our 5th-year anniversary of being legally married in 2009. And then when the Fed recognized our marriage, even though we didn't have to, we just thought we like to get married early and often, so we just got married again. And we have worn the same outfits each and every time.
Oh, interesting.
That's sweet. You know, and I've asked this to a number of people. Most people think, okay, what's the difference? You're married, you're not married. And to me, it really made a difference, especially when Brian died. You know, that day it just hit me. God, it's a good thing we got married because it just made everything easier. But what has being married meant to you?
Well, you know, when we first got married, and it's really interesting because I don't even know why Mary proposed to me because nobody was doing that back then.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, so we had this mitzvah, we said vows under a chuppah in front of 65 people, and it just meant something. It meant that, you know, we're not fooling around here. This is a lifetime commitment, and we have all these witnesses. So, you know, when things get rough, which they might and often do, there's no backing out. So, you know, that was one thing. And then, you know, it was very different when 2004 rolled around because, you know, the first time we were a little hesitant to tell, like, the person, like in the salon where I got my nails done, why I was getting my nails done on that particular day. But this time, like, I told the manicurist, and she was like, oh, I have a special bottle called Kiss the Bride, you know, and she knew I was marrying another woman. So things had really changed. And it's just my solid foundation that, you know, I made this lifetime commitment, and it definitely feels different to me.
Do you know, our synagogue did a study of Musar, and Musar is Jewish ethics. And the idea, there are different topics like honesty. So under honesty, is it okay to tell a white lie? And, you know, generally people agree that if you're telling the white lie in order to not hurt somebody and it doesn't affect anything, it's better to tell the white lie than just be perfectly blunt and honest. I hated this chapter of the book because one of the things, and it's, you know, very conservative and very old country. A lot of the stories come from, you know, the shtetl, from Russia, you know, that kind of thing. And should a rabbi be honest? If the bride isn't beautiful, should he not say? Should he say something?
Oh, my God!
I know. Well, because on her wedding day, the bride is supposed to be the most beautiful she's ever been in her life. And
who cares what the rabbi
I got angry. Well, I got angry at this. No, I cared what the rabbi said. I said, if that rabbi...
Who cares what he thinks?
Well, I want to know what he thinks in this case, because I said on Marriage Equality Day, I went down to the county records building and I watched I don't know how many weddings. I photographed at least 10 of them, but I saw, 100 people getting their licenses. Every single one was beautiful. They were there with their kids. Some of them had been there. Well, Jack and George, who had been together for 53 years at the time.
Wow.
How beautiful was that? They were beaming. I've never seen such beautiful faces.
I was going to say the same thing because I went down to City Hall in Northampton and saw, I forget the number, but it was huge. It was like 200 couples, including one straight couple, which we all kind of were shocked at, and then we laughed, and it's like, oh, right, they can get married too.
Right.
But everybody is beautiful on their wedding day.
Of course.
Every single person is beautiful on their wedding day.
And that was my point. If he couldn't see it, I don't want him part of my wedding.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, in our wedding, we had 950 of our closest friends there. The Turtle Creek Chorale was singing behind us, and I was facing the chorale who was on stage behind us, basically, but I was facing them and the rabbi was facing the audience. And I started to see all these guys, 150 guys singing, and one after another started crying. And I'm like, no, guys, don't do this to me. So, but it's beautiful and it's joyous, and that's why I love that poem. I just absolutely love that poem because it says what marriage is to us and how important that first date was when marriage equality came in.
And it's true, the newscasters were getting all choked up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm thinking, you're not supposed to do that, but they just couldn't help it. I mean, it was so hard won. And, like you said, many people had children with them, and many couples had been together for a long time. And it was just this kind of window into, like, what paradise could be like if the whole world was just full of love like this, which, for this one day, it was.
Yeah, it was just the most joyous day. Here in Dallas, every elected official was at the courthouse. The judges were fighting to be the first one to do the weddings, and they dealt them out. And we have a 3-day waiting period, so you had to go to a judge if you wanted to get married that day in order to get a waiver. But, it was like they were fighting over participating. It was wonderful. It was just... It was so joyous.
It was quite literally like every judge in the county said, I am open, please come. They canceled
their dockets for the day, most of them.
So. Yeah, we had the same thing. We also had the 3-day waiting period, and so where you got your marriage license is up the street from the courthouse. So there was this, just kind of this parade of people. Everyone who came out with, waving their marriage license, and everyone would cheer, and then off they would go down to the courthouse. It was really quite something. And some people took their kids out of school because they said, this is historic and this is more important.
I met somebody like that. We stopped to get lunch, and a woman with her kids was sitting at the next table, and they looked over at us. They said, "Oh, did you two just get married?" And we said, "No, we didn't, but we're over there watching everybody else." I said, "We're going to plan something, I guess." But she said, we were over at, I forgot which museum, and she said, "This is so historic, I had to walk my kids by to see what was going on."
Oh, that's great.
There was a woman who brought her kids to the first marriage in the courtroom, and her kids were, elementary school, and they were handing out roses to the wedding participants. And she said, I took them out of school for this.
Oh, that's nice.
Whatever their activity was, I think school was out then, but I took them out, and she said, I'm straight, but I think this is something that they should always remember.
Right.
Yeah, they'll remember it their whole lives.
Yeah. Why don't you read another poem? Because you had two that you said you
had a political one.
Oh, the political one. Okay, so this is...
Actually, that last one was kind of political, too.
Kind of political, right. So this was in response to the horrible shooting in Orlando, and it's called That Night. That night we drank a few shots at the bar. That night we were shot many times at the bar. That night the bartender cried, "Last call." That night we frantically made last calls. That night the music pulsed through our veins. That night the bullets tore through our veins. That night we got down and sweated together. That night we fell down and bled together. That night the bartender mixed Bloody Marys. That night the killer fixed Bloody Marys. That night some of us shared our first kiss. That night all of us shared our last kiss. That night we danced in each other's arms. That night we died in each other's arms. That night turned into a cloud-streaked morning. That night turned into a tear-streaked morning.
Oh, wow.
That's lovely.
That was awesome.
Yeah. We need to take a break in just a minute. I want to change gears for a second. Oh, before I do you want to say something about the poem?
I think the poem speaks for itself. It was just my response. When I am so overcome with emotions, I just pick up my pen, and this came out. I don't know what good it does, but it helps me. So this is what I came up with.
I thought it was dead spot on for anybody who couldn't relate to it. Listening to that poem, that gives an idea of exactly what happened.
Oh, well, thank you.
When you're writing a book, one of your books of poetry, you don't sit down to write a book of poetry, do you?
No, well, sometimes I do. For example, October Morning, and I carry my mother. Like I said, it has
it's about one thing.
Yeah, a theme that carries all the way through with a narrative line. But this is more of a collection of singular poems that I've just been writing for several years, and I just kind of looked to see what I had and if I could put them together, and it seems to have worked.
Is your process different than when you're writing either a children's book or more of an adult book that is not poetry, that's more prose?
Not really. I just try to sit down every morning with a pen and a spiral notebook and start scribbling and see what comes out, if anything. And then, once I have an image or an idea or a thought, I'll just keep pestering it till I start developing it and it grows and changes, and then hopefully it turns into something worthwhile.
Good. Our guest today, I love this description. I was looking up different biographies and several different things that were written in different places, and I think they described you as a loudmouth Jewish lesbian from Massachusetts. I just love that description. Yeah,
Badge of honor.
It is. So we'll be back with more with Lesléa. I'm Dave Taffet with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and we'll be back with more Lambda Weekly right after this.
This is Rollins Gilliland, and I'm listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3, and darn glad to be doing it.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and we're talking to Lesléa Newman. She's best known for her book, Heather Has Two Mommies, which is coming up on 30 years.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Congratulations.
It's just been re-released, and it's the book that whenever anybody I know has a kid, they have to have.
Gotta have it.
Yep.
They must.
And one of the reasons I said you're a hero here because you had a run-in with one of the most hated people in Dallas, Pastor Robert Jeffress.
Who's still on that list of most hated?
I wasn't saying was one of. I'm saying is one of the most hated people in Dallas.
Is, and will continue to be.
At the time, he was the pastor of First Baptist in Wichita Falls, which is about 100 miles northwest of Fort Worth. And
about 4 decades behind.
Yes, okay. I was just going location. I wasn't. But if you want to locate it, you will be going back in time by about. And what he did was he went to the library. They had one copy, and he refused to return it. Which I don't know if you're a pastor, you might have heard of something called theft that's not legal, and also against the Ten Commandments. So a group, and somebody came online I saw and was talking to you, Lesléa, that he and a group bought 50 some odd copies and made sure that libraries that were having the problem of like gluing the pages together and returning it, or ripping pages out and returning it, that they had good copies of it. But Pastor Jeffress, that was the first thing that I know of that got him in the news, so congratulations with that, Lesléa. He's gone on to become a Trump advisor. God.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Oh, he's...
And the latest is that he thinks that, apart from the vulgar language, Trump was spot on about all those countries and about immigrants.
I'm sorry, I have to go throw up now.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible.
Well, at home this morning, we were coming up with some sequels to Heather. Would you like to hear the titles?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll write them down.
First one, Heather uses whichever damn bathroom she pleases.
Oh, I like that.
Heather visits S-hole countries.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And Heather pisses off her mommies and marries a man.
Wow. Heather's had quite a life.
That's just how I imagine Heather. She's one of those nasty women.
I have a better one. Heather is elected to the State House.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Heather's place is under the dome.
So, you know the cartoonist Roz Chast? She's very well known. Did a lot of cartoons for the New Yorker. So during all the Heather controversy, she did a full-page cartoon with 9 titles that were takeoffs on Heather. And let me think if I can remember some. All of Laura's moms are crummy poets. Was a good one. Dave's 3 Shriner uncles. Nicole's mommy and daddy buy their clothes at Sears. It was really, really great. I can't remember some of the others, but those definitely crossed my mind.
That's fun.
And then I forget who it was, but somebody, I think a late night talk host. Remember the Girl Scout controversy that Girl Scouts were going to grow up to be witches and lesbians and all kinds of things.
And they do.
So they proposed and we do, a cookie called Heather Has 2 Malamars.
Oh, perfect. That is awesome.
Yeah, I've been, maybe you could help me. I've been trying to think of a ice cream flavor to propose to Ben and Jerry's with Heather in the name. So, give that some thought at some point.
Yeah, and if any of our listeners think of one, go to the Lambda Weekly page and let us know.
Let us know.
We'll add that to our page.
With Heather Has 2 Mommies having controversy when it first came out, I wonder, is this, every year, there's a national book ban list. And every year, the book, which is another one of my favorites, not by you, but and Tango Mix 3 about the gay penguins, that still makes the list. Does Heather Has 2 Mommies still making that list?
Once in a while, but it was interesting because the book was re-released in 2015 with brand new illustrations, and I did edit the text. And, and it got a lot of publicity. I mean, I went on this junket like I've never gone on, and there really was not a lot of flack for it. So, that gave me a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and Sparkle Boy also, really, I haven't really heard of any negative publicity for Sparkle Boy.
Yeah, and let's talk about Sparkle Boy as well as the boy who cried fabulous.
Okay.
Because
I know that boy.
Because you're talking to an entirely new audience. I mean, just Heather having 2 mommies who are just the most boring regular people in the world, that was controversial. But, the boy who cried fabulous is really talking about somebody who maybe is not that regular, blends into society, just happens to be gay type person.
Right. So, The Boy Who Cried Fabulous, which I think came out in 2004, I can't quite remember, was about a little boy who just loved all kinds of fabulous things, including purses and hairstyles and things that, little boys aren't, quote-unquote, supposed to like or notice. And then Sparkle Boy goes even further because Sparkle Boy likes to dress up in sparkly skirts and sparkly bracelets and do his nails. And, he's not really identifying as anything. He's only 3. But he just knows what he likes and what brings him joy. And his parents and grandmother are fine with this, but it's his sister who has a little problem. There's a little sibling rivalry going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
I hadn't read that one. I got to get a copy.
And I have it in my office. I'll bring it in for you next week. Yeah. And you realize, Lesléa, you inspired a book that Lerone wrote.
I have not realized that.
Oh yeah, it's been a while, but we talked about it.
Oh dear.
Through
well, I am a
emails.
woman of a certain age.
Yes, you are.
Memory's going.
Yeah, I'll send you I sent you a like, but you didn't like it, so I'll do it again. It's my book.
Okay.
It's called Gabrielle's Gift.
Gabrielle is Lerone's daughter, and he wrote a book for her that Gabrielle has 2 dads in the book, but it's not I mean, it's mentioned, but it's just in passing. It's just completely not part of the story at all, other than she has two dads.
Well, this is what people have been saying to me. Heather was great and, had its time, but now we just want, a girl with two moms and they go to the park, or, a child with two dads and, they go to school and something happens, just because it's, every day isn't always about, I have two moms and, somebody has a dad. It's just life.
Yeah, for me, it's just on Sunday. at 1 o'clock Central Time. Yeah. But the other part with Lerone's book is that it's an interracial couple. And when we were talking about it before it came out, you said you were having a lot of trouble, Lerone, finding children's books with interracial same-sex couples.
Multiracial families, yeah. And, I mean, there's a few out now. And believe it or not, the few that I have found have been some authors out of the UK. But over here, I haven't seen many at all. And so...
Well, Sparkle Boy, his family is... the dad is Caucasian and the mom is Puerto Rican.
Oh, right, that's right.
And so the grandmother is an Abuelita.
Oh, wow.
So just to mention that.
Awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a publisher called Lee and Low, who's a really fabulous publisher. That's who published Sparkle Boy, and they specialize in multicultural books. So that might be a press for you to check out.
Okay.
The new book from Lesléa Newman is called Lovely. It's a book of poetry that deals with everything from childhood to becoming a woman of a certain age. I'm going to use that whenever I can't think of something or remember something. I'll remind people I'm a woman of a certain age.
You definitely are.
The book is divided into 5 sections. I love the last section. It's Nasty Women. And
I'm a nasty woman, too.
I was going to say, Patti, you belong in that last section of the book. How did you come up with the divisions of the book? Or how did you organize the book?
Well, the first thing I did was I threw the poems up in the air like a pack of cards and played 52 pickup to see, where they would fall. But then I started seeing, how they grouped together, how they spoke to each other. And it was interesting because, in the way the books are, the way the poems are in the book is not the chronological order in which I wrote them. So, I grouped them into poems about childhood, love poems, political poems. There's some poems about food. There's just, all kinds of things that just seem to fall together. And I always think of, do you remember the Mamas and the Papas, since you are a woman of a certain age?
Of course.
Oh, I do too.
Of course. So there were
Naomi Cohen is one of my favorite singers.
Okay,
Cass
so there were
Elliot.
That's
4.
Cass Elliot, yeah.
Right, so there were 4 singers, and so they often talked about the 5th voice, which was the blend of all their 4 voices to create another additional voice.
That's cool.
And so I think of that with a book of poetry. If there are 49 poems, what I'm looking for is the 50th poem, which is the whole book, and how kind of it all becomes one poem in a way. Because all the poems work together.
And it made sense to me that the first part is about your mother, about growing up, about her death. The Hanukkah game is in there because that's just a home thing. So that part made sense, and the Nasty Women ending it because that's a new thing.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, we've always been around. They just didn't see us this way. So our presence is known.
That's true.
That's true. That's very true.
Are we nasty boys?
No, I'm a nasty woman.
Okay.
Maybe I should read you that particular. Would you like me to read that particular poem?
Sure.
Okay, it's called The Coming Storm. Outside sheets of rain, inside sheets of satin, outside pounding sleet, inside pounding hearts, outside temperatures fall, inside temperatures rise, outside bare branches, inside naked limbs, outside shivering with cold, inside quivering with heat, outside slick roads, inside slick skin, outside heavy snow, inside heavy breathing, outside slippery sidewalks, inside slippery fingers, outside glistening fields, inside, glistening bodies. Outside, howl of wind. Inside, howl of joy. Outside, nasty weather. Inside, nasty women.
I like
Love it. I love it.
Do you want to just comment on it a little bit? I mean, what I get is...
What is there to say? I'm blushing here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just getting the contrast, but outside nasty weather, inside nasty women.
I do have a question, though, Lesléa. I noticed on Amazon, of course, many of your books for children are available on Kindle. Do you find that a Kindle experience with a children's book is different from holding it in your hands and turning the pages and touching it?
Well, I have nothing to do with that. That's my publisher's decision, and I have never read a picture book to a child on a Kindle, so I have no idea what that's like.
I think it might be different, very different.
I think so, too. I mean, I don't even read, books for adults on Kindle. I'm an old-fashioned girl.
I am, too.
So
we're women of a certain age.
That's exactly
I can
right.
speak to that. I do have a little one. Yeah, you're right. Because we've ordered some books off of Amazon, some children books, and they automatically come in both forms. You get the hardback, which is automatically a Kindle version of it. And we've tried, and at the time, my daughter didn't seem to like it either. There's something about holding a book,
Yes.
being able to turn the page.
Yes.
Yeah.
And point to a picture.
Exactly.
And if you point to the picture and you touch the screen, it's going to move it to the next page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's something very comforting about just sitting down with a physical object of a book and turning the pages and, going back to the page before if you need to. We're so gadget obsessed. It's just nice to turn off everything and just sit quietly with a book. Jackie Mason had, I have mixed feelings about him, but he had a very funny routine once about books, and he was like, if you drop it in the bathtub, you just, you buy another one for $10. If it's just, I don't know, the way he just talked about it was very, very funny. It's like, yeah, the internet, you can talk to people in Russia. Have you talked to your neighbor lately? I mean, things like that.
Right.
And with gadgets, I was actually out to dinner with somebody, and he's on his phone constantly. One time I took the phone from him, and it was like physical withdrawal, something. He just couldn't deal with it. So I gave him the phone back because that wasn't working. And he's busy and he's texting. So I texted him, hello. And I just can't go out to dinner with people like that because...
No, I can't either.
Yeah.
I mean, I am, the bad guy. Like when I go out with my brother and his family, and he has a teenager, I say, okay, this is a gadget-free meal, and they all very reluctantly put their gadgets away. And then as soon as the meal's over, my nephew just has to have it.
Yeah. And it's talking about kids and reading children's book via Kindle. It's just not them. Adults also. I don't really like to read books on Kindle. I like to have a physical book. A friend of mine just finished his first novel, and he sent me the version. It's not edited yet, so he sent it to me.
The advanced reading copy.
Yeah, just the other day, but he sent it to me in an email, and I'm like, okay, thank you, and I went and printed it out. So it's like 300 pages long.
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to read this online. I want to hold it physically. So.
Yeah, I insist on that. But agents and editors now, when they get manuscripts coming in, a lot of them they read them on their phone.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm also not used to going to a wedding or a funeral where someone's making a toast or giving a eulogy and they're reading it off their phone.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
Right?
Like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, something happens like, oh, wait a minute, and then they get it back. That doesn't happen if you have a piece of paper in front of you.
Well, unless it's multi-pages and you drop the pages as you're stepping up onto the stage.
Well, I officiated at my cousin's wedding, and her wife. We did it at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, and it was a freaking wind tunnel. And it was a double wedding. Some friends of theirs who had been married or been together even longer, their nephew, who was an ordained minister, was there, and the violinists had lost their music long ago, went flying off the stand.
Oh, wow.
And I was struggling to hang on to my papers, and he had his iPad and was, confident.
Oh, wow.
So there was a moment. Maybe that would have been a smart move.
Okay.
They have their use. We need to take a break. We're talking to Lesléa Newman. Her new book is lovely. She's best known for Heather Has Two Mommies. She's written Mommy, Mama, and Me, Daddy, Papa, and Me, A Fire Engine for Ruthie, which is my favorite, Matzo Ball Moon.
Donovan's Big Day, which is my favorite.
Oh, okay.
Love that one.
And we're going to talk more. She'll read more from her new book, Lovely. I need to ask her about her Hanukkah obsession, and we'll be back with more Lambda Weekly right after this.
Hi, this is Valletta Lil, and I listen to Lambda Weekly. I hope that you will too.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and Lesléa Newman is back with us. She is the author of the new book, Lovely. It's a book of poetry. It is for adults. She's mostly known as a children's author, but has done a number of books for adults. Lerone.
Leslie, I just wanted to talk to you about, your children's books in school. One of the biggest surprises I've had from my one little book is that it has ended up in some classrooms, to my surprise. A couple of friends have sent me pictures of their kids reading the book to the class, and I just didn't expect that. And my daughter asked to take it to school, and I was reluctant to let her, because I didn't write the book. I'm not trying to start anything or kick up any dust. And the teachers loved it, and now they have read it to several classes. So. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to get some controversy, and it's been nothing, absolutely nothing. Have you heard anything about any of your array of children's books being used in school, and what has been the response?
A lot of my children's books are used in schools, and there's such a range of schools from the Montessori schools where there's never any problem. I think, schools are self-selective, so I think if any school or a teacher, had a problem, they just wouldn't bring that book into their classroom. I mean, sometimes something will happen where a kid with two moms, two dads brings Heather in, or one of my other books like Daddy, Papa, and Me, and then, things could happen or not happen, but, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. I have to look at my internalized homophobia when I think, oh, am I going to cause trouble? Well, I'm not causing trouble. If somebody has a problem with the book, it's like, that's their problem.
Yeah, true.
Not that I'm going to... I don't know. People always talk about, the gay agenda, which is like, do the laundry, go grocery shopping.
Pay the bills.
That's my agenda. So, the world is changing, and, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a school that has never had a two-mom or two-dad family among the student body.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that child deserves to be represented in the literature of that classroom as much as any other child.
Absolutely.
It's more than just deserves to be represented. If other kids have never met a kid that has two parents of the same sex, a book like one of yours helps explain it to them, and a kid's reaction is usually, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Have you seen the film It's Elementary by Deb Chasnoff?
I did a while ago.
A long time ago, right? And I remember, they had this whole explanation and whatever, and this little kid just looks into the camera and goes, what's the big whoop? It was so great.
Yeah, and my favorite story here, one of the rabbis at one of the synagogues has a son who was, when he was like 6 years old, his best friend had two dads. And but the kid whose father was the rabbi, his wife is also a rabbi. So the rabbi is listening in on the conversation they're having, and his son asked the other kid, why do you have two dads? and so David, the rabbi, he's like, "Oh my God, we're going to have this whole long," and but the answer from the other kid was, "I don't know. Why do you have two rabbis?" You know, and it's such a perfect answer because it's everybody has something.
Yeah.
Right, right. Well, you know, some of the kids' responses to Heather Has Two Mommies when it first came out was really great. One kid was like, look, you know, who had a mom and dad said, why can't I have two moms?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he thought it was a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and another kid was like, can we get a dog and a cat like Heather? That was the most interesting thing about the book.
Yeah, because there was just nothing odd about it. It was like, okay, so Heather has two mommies, and that's fine. You know, some parents
and
have
what kids know is, you know, this is my family. These are the people who love me. These are the people who take care of me. You know, a kid isn't born, you know, with this knowledge, oh, the right family is a mom and a dad. You know, that has to be told, you know, and then it has to be untold. It's not, you know, human nature. It's just, you know, there's all different kinds of families.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I'm wishing to see more of, and I've been longing for this, is, you know, not only just children books that depict our lives, but the world of animation. And there is one cartoon that finally broke the barriers called The Loud House. This little boy has two dads, and they happen to be biracial dads, so that's interesting too. But now there's another one, a really popular cartoon, Doc McStuffins. One of the little girls on there has two moms.
Well, and there's an old one, Batman and Robin.
Well, if we want to go old, there's Ben-Hur. There's
Right.
Yes. Really go way back.
yeah.
So I was just wondering, have you ever been approached about maybe taking some of your characters and making it into a cartoon?
I never have, but, you know, I think, you know, Heather's time has come. Don't you think that should be a Saturday morning cartoon?
You know, Heather Transitions, that could be another book.
A lot of things can happen.
Yeah.
And we don't call her Heather anymore, we just call her Heath.
Let's take that ER right out of there.
You know what? When I was reading several articles about you this morning, I found out one thing that I thought was interesting as a coincidence. You said Grace Paley was somebody who inspired you to write Heather. Grace Paley was a friend.
Letter to Harvey Milk.
Oh, about Harvey Milk. Right. Okay. How did she inspire you? And the reason I'm asking, I knew Grace Paley. She worked with my mother at Sarah Lawrence College back in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she was one of my mentors. And
she's a short story writer for anybody listening who doesn't know who she is. Yeah.
She's a fabulous short story writer. And if you don't know who she is, you should definitely look up her stories because she has the most unique voice. And that is what inspired me because she said to, you know, we were talking about being Jewish and coming from Brooklyn, and that my first language really is Yinglish, which is English, you know, with Yiddish words and phrases sprinkled in Yiddish syntax. You should only live and be well. So, you know, she said, you know, why don't you write from that voice and see what happens? And then a letter to Harvey Milk, which is told in the voice of a 77-year-old a Jewish Holocaust survivor, is what came out. And by the way, since you brought that up, I just want to tell people that it has been turned into a musical with 18 original songs, having its off-Broadway opening on March 6th.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Opening March, I'm going to be there 2 weeks earlier. Will it be in previews?
Oh, well, there'll be previews. Yeah, you should check it out.
I'll see if I can. I'm
probably
staying
get
on Long
previews.
Island. I'm going to a cousin's wedding.
Where on Long Island?
Hempstead. But I'm
Oh,
probably
not far
staying
from where
in Great Neck.
Oh, Great Track.
Yeah.
I grew up in Jericho. Did you know that?
That's right. And I have cousins from Hicksville.
Oh, there you go. And I always took
You
the
see?
train to Hicksville.
Uh-huh.
Exit 40 on the LIU.
Oh, right. I think we were exit 39. So.
Oh, there you go. You're a landsman.
Okay, so while we're on the subject, you seem to have this thing about Hanukkah. You wrote a children's book, Hanukkah Delight. You have a poem in the book here, The Hanukkah Game. What's this with Hanukkah? I'm known as the Hanukkah Grinch.
Oh, are you?
Oh, he is.
I hate Hanukkah.
He writes an article every year in The Voice about how Hanukkah's so stupid, and he spells it 18,000 ways.
Well, there are 56 official ways to spell the word.
Well, that's very interesting, you know, because my book, Hanukkah Delight, and then I also have another book called, you're going to hate me now, 8 Nights of Hanukkah, runaway dreidel, and the Hanukkah game is in the book. So with the children's book, you really have to figure out how are we going to spell Hanukkah.
And I was going to ask you, how did you decide?
Well, again, it was my publisher's decision, and it's the most popular spelling because when people Google it, they want your book to come up. So that's basically how they decide. I do not like that when it's spelled with just an H because that's not how you say it. It's Hanukkah, right?
Yeah.
Right. Should I take you off my Hanukkah greeting card list? I didn't know you hated Hanukkah so much.
My vet has, when the folks are putting up stuff for Christmas and they have the big blow up of a Santa Claus or reindeer or whatever in the front yard. My vet has a blow up dreidel. It's huge.
Oh, really?
She puts it in her front yard.
See, and when people ask me what my favorite Jewish holiday is, it's Shmini Atzeret. And do you know why?
Why?
Because we don't know what it celebrates. It's in the Bible, it's in the Torah, that we, and it's commanded, it's one of those commanded holidays, unlike Hanukkah, which comes later. But it's commanded that we celebrate it, and apparently at the time people knew what it was. It would be like having to explain what the 4th of July is. But it's just in there, and we don't know what it celebrates, but we celebrate it anyway because it's commanded. So it's my favorite.
This would be like...
What do you think of Festivus?
I like Festivus, too.
That's not ordained in the Bible, though.
Not ordained in the Bible, but...
No, that's true.
Well, in Canada, they made up a holiday in August because they didn't have a holiday in August. It's called Civic Holiday.
Gotta love the Canadians.
Before we go, I forgot to do this hour. I do have to do one announcement. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Parade is Monday, January 15th. Look for the KNON entry in the parade, in this year's parade. I'll probably be on it unless it's really cold out. But I'm just going to take the green line down to MLK Station and find our entry. But we're going to be right in there. But over 250,000 parade spectators and participants come to this event. Did you realize that there were that many?
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's a big deal.
The parade begins at Home Street and MLK Boulevard and ends at Fair Park. The Grand Marshals will be Faith Johnson, who's the Dallas County District Attorney, and Renee Hall, our new police chief. For more information, dallasmlkcenter.com. Good, I got that.
And
are you going to come to the parade, Penn?
No, I have to work, but...
We might actually go.
Oh, okay,
really?
Good.
Do you get the day off?
I do.
Oh, wow. I get President's Day. We're owned by a Canadian company now, so we get...
Prime Minister's Day.
No, we get President's Day, which is always... we call it our surprise holiday, because it comes around in February, and we go, oh, we don't have to come to work on Monday. Because nobody makes plans for President's Day.
Right.
Are you going to do your President's Day picnic? No, there's nothing. So there's sales. I could buy a mattress. That's what we could do.
There you go.
I want to change gear a little bit. You and I talked a little bit online. There was the first trans murder of the year, and it was in North Adams, which is right near where you live. And in this murder, it was the husband who killed the trans wife, or killed his wife, who is trans, in the home. He was arrested immediately. Actually, he turned himself in. Did you hear anything else about it, Lesléa, from local media?
I really haven't. It's been very quiet, actually, in the local media. The Berkshires are not really part of our community. It's about an hour and 15 minutes away. But still, obviously it's local enough that there should be more about it in the paper. So, I'm definitely keeping my eye out on that. I mean, maybe nothing's happening right now because he did turn himself in. So I don't know. But he all pled not guilty. I read that. So that means he will go to trial. So I don't know how you turn yourself in and then, plead not guilty.
Did he give any idea of a motive?
It said that they were fighting a lot and that he kind of lost it right before he killed her, and he killed her in this horribly violent, awful way. It's just so horrible and upsetting.
It was multiple murder weapons.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, just horrible. So I don't really know any more about it. But I definitely want to keep my eye on it and see what transpires. I mean, we also had a horrible murder I don't know how many years ago now, 5 or 6 years, where a lesbian killed her wife. So it's just, so upsetting.
Wow.
And she went to trial twice. It was a hung jury, and then the third time she was convicted. Which is very odd, to go back to trial 3 times.
Yes. Yeah, usually if they haven't proven the case by the second trial, they just stop
It's
wasting the
done,
money.
right.
So neither one of those, I'm assuming, can be considered a hate crime.
Well,
That's an interesting question.
a husband killing a wife, by a Texas definition, no, because he knew she was transgender
He knew she
and
was trans.
they were married.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
So
Right.
I would think not.
yeah, under Texas law, that wouldn't qualify. That would not be provable, I would think.
But it's an interesting question.
So, would you like to take us out with one of your other poems? It's from Lovely, which was just published a week or two ago.
Well, I think...
You're going to do
I
the
will-
Hanukkah game, right?
No. Hanukkah's over.
Oh, okay.
I think what I'll do, because, let's lighten the mood a little.
Okay.
And I will read another love poem, and it's a poem that is set during New Year's, which just passed. So I'll read that. It's called, I Want to Stay Up Talking But. You kiss me at midnight and tell me to hush. I lie back in bed and do just as you say. Feeling my cheeks and my chest start to blush. You kiss me at midnight and tell me to hush. Then make it quite clear that you're not in a rush. The new year is here and we're happy and gay. You kiss me at midnight and tell me to hush. I lie back in bed and do just as you say.
Very nice.
Sweet.
And I'm not a New Year's person either.
Let's face it, David just doesn't like to celebrate.
I see. I'm getting that
Celebration
idea.
Miniat Sarat.
There you go.
No, I've never been much of a New Year's person. Do you go out for New Year's?
No, we stay in. Obviously.
I think growing up, I went down to see the ball drop on Times Square once. I mean, so crowded and so cold, and that was no pleasure.
No, what's pleasure is, for me, is having a warm, cozy home and someone to share the holiday with, which I feel very fortunate, that I do. And, everyone else can be out running around, and, I have everything I need at home, so I'm very happy to be here.
And when I say I don't go out this year, I'm not going out much, but even with Brian, we just never went out. We usually watch the ball drop at 11 o'clock Central Time, and and then went to bed. So very exciting. Leslie, I want to thank you for being with us. Oh, before we go, I kept saying my favorite of your books is A Fire Engine for Ruthie, and that's because Leslie thinks dolls are creepy.
I do, and clowns.
And I'm with you on those.
And
Yeah,
clowns.
I'm not a fan of either.
Yeah, my husband is the same way with clowns.
But Ruthie likes motorcycles and fire engines and
Trucks and, all kinds of things.
You just have to get that if you're a woman of a certain age, I guess.
Right.
Yeah,
Instead
there
of,
you
as
go.
my cousin has home video footage of old, where she's given a vacuum cleaner and an iron.
Oh, wow.
No more today.
No more.
Well, we are out of time,
Well,
Leslie.
Leslie, look for an email from me later today, okay?
Okay, yes, and thank you for having me on the show.
Always a
Thanks.
pleasure having you on.
Come back again.
Okay.
Okay, we'll
All
talk to you
right.
soon. Bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.